All right. Everyone can see that good? Thumbs up. All right. Hello, class, and welcome to JavaScript Code, your first game. This is hosted by OrangeNote. It's so nice to see everybody here finally. I'm glad everyone made it. But first and foremost, I just want to take the time to congratulate you guys. You've already hit a milestone, right? You've already taken the first step to learning JavaScript. So give yourself a round of applause, pat on the back. Yep. Congratulations. So I am very looking forward to this. I'm very grateful to have this opportunity to teach you guys one of the most popular programming languages, arguably, in the world. So let's get started. So as Maddie said, my name's Trinidad Ramirez. You can call me Mr. Ramirez. That's fine by me. And I currently study computer science at California State University, Monterey Bay. And that's located in Seaside, just 5 minutes away from the beach. And that's my dog, Bernie. So in my spare time, when I'm not coding or studying, I like to spend time with family, and I spend time with my Basset Hound, Bernie. He's actually a miniature Basset Hound, so he's very small and adorable. And I also like to golf in my spare time as well. So let's go over kind of the elements of this project. So this project, it uses HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So here at the top, well, actually, I'll let you guys identify things for me. So let's see. Annabelle, what do you first see when you look at this?
A heading?
Yes, nice. So yep, that is a heading, and that is used with HTML, and that is the H1 tag. So if you guys remember, for HTML, you have an H1, H2, and I believe it goes all the way to H6. Those are header tags in HTML. In addition to that, we also have images that you can, here, let me pull those up. So we got the images of the characters, and then we got the background image, and then we also have a start button. So when you click that start button, the game will begin, the music will cue, and then you'll be able to play the game, and these images will be clickable. All right, so let's go over some quick final project recommendations. Let's see. So recommendations for the final project, start working on the final projects early if you can. Implement your skills that you're going to learn from each live session into the project every week, if possible, right? So also start thinking about the theme that you want to use and begin looking for images, more preferably ones with transparent backgrounds. And basically what I mean by that is the images that I have here, if you notice, it's just the characters, so there's no white background behind them. So all you see is the character and then the background that I placed behind them. So that's a transparent background. And sometimes they're not always transparent when you find them on the internet. So you can use Adobe. Adobe has a free transparent background maker at your disposal that you can use. You just place the image in the generator, and then it'll create a transparent background of that image. Right. And then, so for the theme, you can do whatever you want, whatever you like. I just so happen to like Nintendo and Mario and things like that, so I did mine based on Mario. And another thing too is, Whack-A-Mole is just a concept, a game. It doesn't have to be a mole, right? So your mole can be whatever you want it to be. It can be the villain or the bad guy of a topic that you like. So if I were if I were into Transformers, then my mole would probably be a Decepticon. Or, you know, if I was into Spider-Man, then it would be Green Goblin or something like that. So it's really up to you. Grace, did you have a question?
No, you answered it.
Okay, so let's do an overview of the course. So what are you going to learn in this class? Um, so you have the web development. I see web development as 3 pillars, and that's HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So as some of you may know, HTML is more so the structure. So you'll see I use a lot of real world examples to kind of explain computer science topics. So when I think of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, I think of a house. So when you're building a house, you have to start with the foundation and the structure or the skeleton of the house, and that's HTML, right? So that's what you're doing with that language. You're kind of setting everything up for your web page. You're putting in the header, any images, any audio, things like that. And then CSS is the styling, right? It's the it's the paint, it's the windows, it's the door, the roof. It's what makes a house look nice. And JavaScript is the interactivity, right? It's what's allowing the user to interact with your web page, and that's things like opening the door of the house, closing the door, locking it, using the stove, using the microwave. That's all JavaScript. You're interacting with elements of the house. And that's what we're going to learn in this course. So just a quick overview of the course expectations. You're going to learn about what JavaScript is, how to implement it with HTML and CSS. We're going to use variables and constants to store data. We're going to use the math.random method to generate random numbers. We're going to use loops and conditionals, logical operators. We're going to use functions. That way we can avoid repeating code and follow the dry principle. Has anybody ever heard of the dry principle? So it's an acronym and it stands for don't repeat yourself. So it's something that if any of you ever decide to do computer science for a living out in the field, they'll talk about the dry principle and use functions to avoid that. And then we'll go over arrays, events. We'll go over the set interval method. And that's actually kind of what makes the pictures flip around like that, like they do, is the set interval method. So that's why we'll cover that. And we'll touch on the set timeout method. And then we will add and control audio to our projects. All right, so with that, let's set up our Replit account browser. And you're going to want to search for Replit. So that's spelled R-E-P-L-I-T. And you're going to want to select this one here, Replit, the collaborative browser-based IDE. And then here in the top right, you're going to see a button that says sign up. So you're going to want to select that. And then here's where you want to create your username, email, and password. I know someone said if you can sign into Google, that's fine too, as well, as long as it creates an account for you. So I'll just type in, let's see, Trinidad, and I'll type in Orange. This will be my OrangeNote account. And then I'll type in my email address. And then a password. And then you'll get green check marks here on the side if everything is valid. Is everybody with me so far? Good, good. Okay. And then I'm just going to press enter. and that will create the account for me. So before I can get started using the account, I'm going to have to verify my email as well, and that'll tell you here at the top. So it'll say, please verify your email, resend verification link. So I'll just head over here to my emails. There it is. It'll say Replit, verify your email, and then you're just going to click on this link here, and that's going to take you back to your Replit account, and then you're all set and you're ready to go. All right, so let's code. We're going to do a little bit of HTML and CSS refresher, and then I'll kind of show you a brief JavaScript introduction. So I'm going to use some elements that we're going to learn in this course. It's kind of just a brief overview to kind of give you guys an idea of JavaScript and how it's used, and to kind of just prime your brain to get you ready for what you're going to learn. So I found that when you see, how things are coded and then how it works, and then you learn it later, you make that connection and you say, oh, I've seen that before, right? So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to open up my Replit account, and feel free to follow along. That is recommended. Let's see, I can close that. All right, so first thing we're going to want to do is let's open up our Replit accounts at the home page, and let's select My Repls. And then I'm going to click where it says New Folder, and I'm just going to call this OrangeNote or JavaScript. It's really up to you, whatever helps keep you organized. And
Could you
then,
do that again?
yeah.
Mine has a file I didn't make. It's called Chunky Chocolate Chip Cookie Dough.
Oh, yeah, we'll get into that. That's Replit's funny way of naming files for you. Let's see. But yeah, let me show you how I did that again. All right. So if you're here at the home, if you're at the home page, you're going to want to select here where it says My Repls. And then you're going to get this window here in the middle. And you're going to want to select where it says New Folder. And then you're going to want to give that folder a name. So I'm just going to name mine OrangeNote. And if I wanted to, I could keep creating files, or I can just create a new REPL in this folder. But for the sake of kind of showing you guys what you can do with the file structure, I'll create another folder, and I'll just call this JavaScript. And then I'll select that folder. And I like that file structure, so this is where I'm going to create my REPL. So I'm going to select the button here that says New REPL. And then you're going to get brought to this screen here. It's going to want you to select a language and name your REPL. So you're going to want to select where it says HTML, CSS, JS, and that just stands for JavaScript. So go ahead and select that. And here's where Replit likes to make strange names for your files for you. But I'm just going to delete that, and then I'm going to name this, I'll name this week 1 demo. And after I've named it, I'm going to select this button that says Create REPL. And what's going to happen is it's going to take you to your IDE, which is just your integrated development environment. This is where we're going to be writing our code. in viewing our sites. So what you'll see is when I'm writing my code here, it's actually going to pop up here, the website. It's going to pop up in this white square. And I don't know about you guys, but I really like the dark theme. It's much easier on the eyes. So if you want to change that as well, you can just click on the settings and select dark, and that'll, because the light theme is too bright. And then you can just select, if you're in the settings, you can just select the file again, which is just that blank page icon. So let's get started. We'll do something when the user clicks. And what's going to happen is I'm going to put a square here. And every time you click on that square, it's going to change a color. So that's what I'm going to go for in today's demo. So let's get started. As you can see here, the cool thing about Replit is it actually creates your HTML file, your CSS file, and your JavaScript file. They're all separate for you already. And the script.js, that's going to be your JavaScript file. That's where you're going to write all of your JavaScript. And then in the HTML file, it actually builds the structure for you. I know some of you have taken the HTML and CSS course, so this might look familiar to you. You have your doc type HTML. That's basically how we identify what file this is. You have your HTML tag, the header, and then the body, and the title as well. Does anybody remember what the title does? Any brave souls? Paul?
It shows up on your browser tab.
Ding, 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 winner. That is correct. So if I were to delete this, and I'll just put week 1 demo. And what Paul's talking about is this tab up here. If everybody can see my cursor. So if I were to type in week 1 demo, then it's going to pop up here in the tab. All right. And then this line is very, very important. This is the line that you're going to have to type in the body of your HTML file. And basically what this does is it connects your JavaScript to your HTML. And it's written like this. It's just script, that is the tag. And then you're going to put src for source, and then just the name of your JavaScript file. So in this case, it's script.js.
One question. So when you make this on if you make it on Replit, is it already like all the JavaScript, CSS, and HTML all connected already?
Yes, it is. Good question. So this line here, that connects the JavaScript, and then this line right here, where it says link href style.css, that's going to connect your CSS. So yep, it's all connected for you. All right, so let's get started. So I told you guys I was going to code a square, and each time the user clicks on that square, it's going to change a color. So what I'm going to want to do is first create a container. And anybody remember the tag to create a container? Starts with the D, I, V. Yep, nice. Good job, Grace. It is div. And then we'll also put the closing tag for it as well. And then that's where we're going to put our square. Now for our square, we're going to have to build it, right? So we can do that with CSS. So let's head over to our CSS file. And the first thing we're going to do is it's probably best to create a class for this. Say if you wanted to use multiple squares, reuse them and put 100 of them on your web page, make it look like a grid, then you can just reuse that square class. And if you guys remember, for classes, it's a dot. And I'm just going to name this square, square. And then opening and closing curly braces. And for this square, let's give it a height and a width. So I'm going to make it 500 pixels. That's probably enough for us to see. And of course, the width will have to be the same. So we'll make it 500 pixels as well. And then let's give it a background color. So this is the color that the square is going to start with before we click on it. So let's see, what color should we, does anybody want to pick a color? What color should we use? Josephine, you want to pick a color?
Blue.
Blue? All right. Blue it is. And if you guys remember, you're gonna have to put semicolons at the end of your CSS statements. It's always easy to forget. And then in case we want to put other elements around it, we're going to give it a margin as well. We're going to give it some space around the square. And I'll just make that 5 pixels. That's a safe bet. So I have my CSS here. I have my HTML file. Now it's time to do some JavaScript. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is I have to actually embed the square in HTML. So let's go ahead and do that first. Now, if you guys remember from HTML or CSS, or if you've coded in that before, you can actually give your elements an ID. And that kind of just gives it a name that you can use to identify when you're writing your JavaScript. So we'll give this a name here. Let's see, what should I name it? Anybody want to think of it? I can't think of a name right now. Anybody want to call it something? Annabelle? What should we name this square?
Harry Potter.
Harry Potter? Harry Potter? All right, I like it. Anybody has HBO? I think all the Harry Potter movies are on there now. You can watch all of them, 1 through, I think the second one had 2 parts. And so now what we want to do here is give it the class that we created, right? So we can do that with the class keyword. And if you remember, if we go to style.css, we actually named it square. So easy peasy. So we'll just type that into double quotes and also put an equal sign there. Alrighty, so now we have the square embedded. It's time to write some JavaScript. Now here is what JavaScript can do, the cool things it can do. Without JavaScript, we wouldn't be able to, make it change colors and things like that. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to want to do, and don't worry if this doesn't make sense now. I promise you, you're going to learn all this. I'm going to teach you how to do it and what it all means. But like I said, this is just to prime your brain. That way you can actually see it first. So let's go ahead and we're going to first want to store this in a variable. And we can do that with the let keyword. And I'm just going to call this square. And then we're going to use a cool feature. It's called document dot get element by ID. And as you can see, the IntelliSense and Replit is actually going to pop that up for you. So document.getElement by ID. And what I'm going to want to do now is I want to access that square that we embedded in HTML. And we do that by using its name. So if you remember, we named it Harry Potter. So what we're going to want to do is come back here and in double quotes, we're going to type in Harry Potter. And then we're going to enclose it with double quotes and the end parentheses. And also the semicolon. Don't forget the semicolon. You're going to need that at the end of every JavaScript statement. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add what's called an event listener. And we can do that by using this variable that we created. So we're going to type in square dot, and there it is. We're going to add event listener. So we're going to select that. And remember what I said, every time you click on the square, it's going to change the color. So we're going to add click every time we click. And then we have to tie a function to this. So I'm going to type in function and then opening and closing curly braces. Again, don't worry if this doesn't make sense now. Trust me, it'll all make sense. We will all learn this. And then here, what I'm going to want to do is I have to use the RGB color scale. Is anybody familiar with the RGB color scale? It's just a bunch of numbers that we use to create a color.
I heard of the hex code for the for colors, but I'm not really familiar with RGB.
Yeah, so it's kind of similar. So you have the hex code for the colors. RGB is just another way to use numbers to represent colors. So it kind of looks something like this. And actually, this is a good opportunity to show you comments. If you ever want to write comments in JavaScript, it's just 2 forward slashes, and then you can write whatever you want, and it won't be ran in the program. And it's going to turn green, so that's how you'll know it's a comment. So RGB is kind of written like, it's written like this. We could just throw some numbers in there. Something like that. So this right here actually represents some color. I don't know what, but that is a color. And I'm going to use this this framework to make the square change colors. And I can do that by using variables.
Can you run the code first? Because I don't know what's supposed to be in it. And I don't know if I did it right or wrong.
Oh, yeah, good question. So there's nothing yet. Actually there might be. Let me see. Yeah, let's go ahead and run it. We might see the square there. So if you click this button that says run, the square will pop up here. Has everybody gotten to this part so far? To the JavaScript. And I'm just going to create variables. And the reason why is because I need 3 variables, one to store this number, and this number. So that's basically all I'm doing here. And I'm going to do that with math.floor and math.random. And again, I'll explain this all to you later on in the course. And each value is out of 255. So I'm just going to multiply that by 255. And then we're going to need 2 more of these. So I'm just going to copy and paste. Right? So whenever you can copy and paste, it'll make it much easier for you. And then we're going to need a random green and a random blue. So that's what the RGB stands for, red, green, and blue. And then last thing we'll have to do.
How do you put the star in the middle?
The star, oh, this star here. So if you hold on to the shift key and press the number 8 on your keyboard, that'll produce the star for you. And then the last line of code that we have to do is access the CSS to use these random colors here. So we can do that with this line of code. And then here's where it gets a little confusing because there's a lot of quotations and things like that. But basically all this is we're embedding CSS with JavaScript, and we are using string concatenation. And we'll go over string concatenation in the next live session. So just for the sake of time, I'm gonna run through this. Green and random blue. And that is it. So now that I have my HTML, my JavaScript, and my CSS, I'm gonna run this. And now if I were to click on the square, it should change colors. And it does. So each time I click, it's going to choose a random color for using the RGB values. And a program like this could be very helpful, right? I remember when I was younger and my parents told me I could paint my room. I couldn't think of what color to paint it. You know, I would sit there for 20, 30, 40 minutes wondering. And if I had this, well, I could just click and be like, okay, I guess I'm painting it purple. Isn't that cool? Each time you click, it changes the color. So the user is interacting with your site. And the cool thing is, up here, if you access this URL, you're going to get this website, right? So if you click on this little button here at the top, and then this is actually what you're going to, so when you work on your coding assignments, you're going to turn in your link, this link, and then this link up here so I can view your code. But all right, and that concludes the demo. So I know we're a little bit over time, but if anybody has any questions or needs some help getting this program running, please just meet me in my office hours. You could just stay after class, and then we will go over it and make sure that works. But aside from that, thank you guys so much. I'm glad every one of you made it, and I will see you in the next course next Friday at 5 p.m.